You either believe that God created a human in this format, or you believe that we evolved. And it doesn't make any difference what you believe. What we know is our body is designed to eat fat and protein.
100%. You only have to look at the digestive tract of a human to know this. The reason why we have such low stomach pH is to break down animal flesh to a liquid, which we do. We can do that quite easily.
Want the evolutionary explanation, you go back 2 million years, 3 million years, when humans were killing elephants, rhinoceroses, hippopotamus. That's what they were eating. And we've got the evidence.
We've got all the evidence, yet you'll still have plenty of people saying we're frugivores and we're herbivores of some kind, which is clearly nonsense.
Look for is cut marks on fossilized bones where they know humans or pre-humans have existed. They found that hippopotamus were killed by Paranthropus 3 million years ago. The evidence is absolutely clear.
Several tools recovered in direct physical contact with hippopotamid bones. Deep cut marks with clearly preserved internal striations, and 3 stone flakes exhibit use wear indicative of butchery. These are really clearly from stone tools. Hominins were consuming both meat and marrow, so it's not just the cut marks, are also crushing the bones open and getting at the marrow inside.
That's a high-fat diet right there.
And what happened, humans ate these very fat animals until they were wiped out by humans. And then we had to find a substitute, and carbohydrates were the substitute. But our body wasn't designed to cope with carbohydrates. We're designed to metabolize gently the protein and the fat and absorb it without getting these spikes, which cause the insulin, which causes the obesity and the diabetes. And so that's how we evolved.
It's so lovely to see kids actually eating proper food.
That's how we were created. If you're not prepared to read the history of how humans were created or evolved, you're going to miss the story completely. Imitation scientists being paid to give a different story.
When I was growing up, Brussels sprouts were one of the most disgusting plants that we could eat. They were bitter, they were horrible, and all kids hated them, and all parents try to force their kids to eat them because you know how good vegetables are.
Bitter means toxic.
In the late 1990s, a botanist identified the gene that caused bitterness in Brussels sprouts, and he deleted that gene and then created a monoculture of Brussels sprouts. Since that time, Brussels sprouts has now been cultivated, genetically engineered to be sweet, to be big, to be more disease resistant. So in the course of literally 20-25 years, that entire Brussels sprouts crop has gone from being this bitter, disgusting thing to being this wonderful, sweet Brussels sprouts. Think about that. That Brussels sprouts has only been really edible for about 20 or 30 years.
This is true of a lot of plants as well. We've got our hands on all of the plants, changed them, made them bigger, more colourful. They're full of carbohydrates. They're extra sweet. You know, the bitterness is kind of toned down a little bit. So we've really tampered with things.
I used to break wind all the time. I haven't broken wind in years now. I don't think breaking wind is a great thing, no. I think it's a sign your gut's not very happy.
When fibre reaches the gut, we partially ferment it and it creates all this gas. And that's basically why carnivores don't really suffer with flatulence, because we don't attempt to digest the indigestible carbohydrate portion of the plant, being cellulose.
Steak every night, yeah. Really? Twice a day, yeah. But I don't have a lot of vegetables. In nature, you're a broccoli growing in the ground. How do you defend yourself? You haven't got claws, you haven't got, right, you know, you have all these things that don't want you to eat it. Defense chemicals. I was also vegan for a long time. Why? I wrote a book on how I thought it was great, but my health really tanked.
Most orthodox nutritionists would advocate eating 5 vegetables a day.
I listen to that and it goes in where I go. I question it.
In the wild, it's not possible to eat 5 vegetables per day. This is why it's nonsense.
If it is important that human beings eat so much fruit and so much vegetables and it's so healthy for us and blah, 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 and we have to eat more grains, let's go back and look at the history of the botany of the plants we currently eat.
Right, take a look at this. This is a wild mustard plant. This is where all cruciferous vegetables have been derived from. We created them.
Plants hate us. Most plants do not want to be eaten by us. Most plants in the wild type are poisonous to human beings. That is an absolute fact.
They were small and white rather than very long and orange.
Bitter and disgusting.
So how the hell come we have to eat a plant-based diet? It doesn't compute. We've been around for literally hundreds of thousands of years as a species. If we go back and we look at the plants that everybody on the internet and all our doctors and all the famous people are telling us we must eat and a plant-based diet is so good for us, none of those plants existed more than 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. We never ever ate them because they didn't exist.
Yeah, We could not have eaten the plants like this, like we eat today. It's just not possible.
Thousands of years of artificial selection, corn has changed massively in its appearance.
Humans have an optimal diet, one optimal diet, the same as literally every species on our entire planet has an optimal diet.
You don't see animals eating a spectrum of foods, eating the rainbow, everything in moderation. Again, it's complete nonsense. It's a fallacy. Humans have adopted this concept and it's garbage.
Oh, well, this is what works for me, but what works for me might not work for you. And this makes absolutely zero sense.
You're on this carnivore diet now.
The motivation for this has been my experience with my daughter because she has arthritis. She had 40 affected joints, her hip replaced and her ankle replaced when she was 15 and 16. She basically hobbled around on 2 broken legs for 2 years in extreme agony.
That's my hip replacement. After I got my hip done, my ankle cartilage just disappeared.
And she was also severely depressed. She is doing so well now, it is absolutely beyond comprehension. She's just glowing with health. All of her autoimmune symptoms are gone, all of them.
Mine too.
But try a low-carb diet and you change, you realize, my gosh, how could I have done this for so long without realizing I was killing myself?
This all basically starts about 10,000 years ago at the start of the agricultural revolution. And this is when the human species went from steadily getting bigger and stronger and our brain size getting bigger and bigger and bigger for over 2.5 million years. It's been going up and up and up and up, and then pew, we started eating plants. And maybe this was necessary at the time, but our bodies aren't designed to eat plants.
We created them by hybridization and now by genetic engineering. They've gotten bigger, their flavor has gotten better, and they become more colorful.
Watermelon was hard, bitter, and pale green in color.
They smell better. We've preserved their disease stability, and they have a higher carbohydrate content.
Right, so we're not really designed to accommodate so many carbs in the diet. And now we're eating more carbohydrates than ever, and we've been told to stay away from saturated fats and cholesterol. So everything's low fat. You go down the dairy aisle, it's all low fat, and look what's happened to human health.
But if you think about it, even for someone as old as me, in the 1950s, an apple was a little sour thing like this that was available for a few months a year. Now it's this huge big thing that's sweet, that lives forever, and is available 24/7.
When we stopped eating meat and fat and started switching over to more plant-based in the 80s, since the USDA declaration in 1977 saying that cholesterol causes heart disease, so stop it, we listened. We reduced red meat by over 33% since the 1970s, reduced our cholesterol and saturated fat intake roughly the same amount. We replaced a lot of that with lean chicken and things like that, but red meat came down significantly. And we increased the amount of fruits and vegetables we ate, increased the seed oils, and the results were, I think, quite telling because, the obesity rate tripled. Heart disease tripled, stroke rates tripled, cancer rates tripled, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune disorders, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and even neurodevelopmental delays such as autism all increased exponentially.
It's interesting because a lot of vegetarians and vegans will worship these correlative studies, but this correlation right here, they will just completely dismiss.
Didn't exist before then. Now they're like the only thing we treat.
We can all get healthy.
Yeah, come on.
Stay away from Tom's bread. Eat only meat. And they think that maybe the root for many people of a lot of pain and discomfort is just inflammation, heavy diet.
Right.
Sugar is the big one. Your body does not want to have to process all that stuff. And if you're eating food like, grass-fed beef, or in my case, elk,
Joe loves his elk.
Did it to try to find out what it's like to only eat meat. When you have no carbohydrates, one of the things that's most amazing is that there's no crashing. You would eat and you don't feel any different after you ate other than the fact that you don't feel hungry.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. The reason why this is because when you're fat adapted, you're never short of energy. You can always tap in to your fat stores for energy. So you don't feel like these really extreme crashes like you do when you're on carbohydrates and craving glucose all the time.
Like you don't crash.
Right.
There's no ups and downs and peaks and valleys. My energy levels were amazing.
Really?
How quickly? Energy.
How quickly?
2 weeks in.
2 weeks.
2 weeks in, I noticed I felt amazing.
And
I felt incredible after about 3 weeks. So
when you deviate from it, you feel it right away.
Right, sure.
And you're 55 years old.
Correct.
And you just won a rowing competition.
Well, I just picked up the #1 ranked time in the world on the concept too, yeah.
Right, and that's a sprint, 500-meter sprint.
Right.
And you're 55 and you're beating Olympians.
20-year-olds, yeah.
20-year-olds.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
The #2 guy, the #3 guy, and the #5 guy. Guess what diet they're on?
Carnivore.
They're all carnivore.
Really?
Yep.
you can see the shock on his face, like, wait, really?
There is a Michigan State decathlete. He's one of the top guys in the country on it. There is a guy who just made the U.S. Olympic wrestling team. He's on it. Several guys in the NFL. Several top-level MMA fighters. Several athletes from all over the world have done this. Rugby players.
Those guys were animal-based, but I'm sure that they are hyper-carnivorous, 70% minimum animal products.
So yeah,
I find that getting people onto a carnivore diet, they help their health dramatically. We have a lot of obese patients that come in and need help with that, and then we have a lot of people that just come in because they're just not feeling great. Patients with autoimmune diseases. I've yet to see an autoimmune condition not benefit dramatically from a carnivore diet.
All of her autoimmune symptoms are gone. All of them.
And
autoimmune conditions respond exceptionally well to carnivore. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
And certainly for people with gut issues like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, getting rid of the fiber is actually very helpful. And just removing all the other stuff is a better treatment to get people out of an acute flare-up of Crohn's than the steroids like prednisone.
Which you want to avoid anyway, because steroids are highly inflammatory.
Sean, everyone knows you need carbs.
You need glucose.
Explain this.
So glucose, we clearly need. Our brain needs it. Our red blood cells need it. Parts of our kidney need it. There's certain cells that are absolutely require glucose. The nice thing is the body is designed so we can make plenty of glucose through something called gluconeogenesis, which is a conversion of amino acids or glycerol from triglycerides, from fat. We can turn that into glucose, all the glucose we need. And so your body makes exactly what you need instead of over-consuming, because that's what we often do when we eat carbohydrates.
So if we have to, we can go forage and hunt and gather, but we would prefer to eat meat.
Well, if you watch any survival show, you know what happens, right? The ones that kill the big animal win.
Carbohydrates are non-essential. This is why.
And it's a carnivore diet. You can eat as much meat as you want until you're full. I started losing body fat. The way I feel is completely different.
You actually have more energy.
More energy. When you eat lots of food and you get that tired, lethargic, I want to lay down.
Because of the insulin.
That's all carbohydrates. And also, anyone here who suffers with depression, or anyone here who feels angry some days, or brain fog, you're not thinking clearly, you're not sharp, That's all carbohydrates. When you remove carbohydrates, all of that goes away.
100%, no doubt.
My acid reflux just went in a day, and I haven't had even a symptom of acid reflux since skin conditions improved. It was like 3 weeks in, and I realised I was smiling for the first time in so long, and I just realised I was really quite happy. My energy was amazing, and I just couldn't believe it, because I think deep down I've always been a skeptic, thinking, this isn't going to work, or I bet it just won't work for me. And anyway, I had to pull over and just record and just share my experience, because I couldn't believe the efficacy of this diet and how it just seemed to really hit 100% at sort of 3 weeks.
I just felt like it's just worth sharing, because it's unbelievable, really. So my depression is gone.
It's just unbelievable, really, that my depression has lifted, and it just came with a whole host of other benefits. It's just enabling me to stay on track, really. I don't want any of that stuff back in my life. So, I'm a carnivore. I have every intention of staying on this path. That's it, really.
It's very difficult not to get enthusiastic and passionate about this, because seriously, I've never felt better, and I can't stop smiling. So,
who was that guy?
It's been fascinating to figure out, later in life, that carbs aren't necessary to function well.
The less carbs you eat, the better. You don't need fruit, vegetables, bread. You can go completely meat. If you eat fatty meat, it's going to have all the vitamins you need.
Yeah.
I feel so much better, so much more energetic, stronger, everything.
You feel better.
I feel better, which is the most important thing.
I love the constraints of discipline. That's partially why I like carnivore. I like saying no to food that is delicious.
It's funny, because that was actually something that I enjoyed in the beginning, is saying no. No. If I gave in, I would just end up regretting it, sitting on the couch, beating myself up. Oh, why did you do that? But for some reason, these things are hard. They're a challenge, right? Started out with a 30-day challenge. Every day that I said no to all the stuff that I wasn't supposed to eat, no matter how hard it was, I felt good afterwards. And so I can understand where he's coming from.
I'm eating basically once a day.
So would you recommend this to somebody who wants to lose?
Everybody.
Really?
Everybody.
That's Tristan Lee. He's actually not doing this diet anymore. I think he may have been talked out of it, I'm not too sure. This is Richard Smith from Keto Pro, who I didn't know at the time when I was making this video, but now we quite regularly chat. Kerry from Homestead How. Again, I didn't know this guy when I was putting this together, but we've chatted numerous times. I've kind of blocked out the amount of years he's been doing this, but this is Rick. He's been doing carnivore for 4 decades. He originally called it the heart attack diet, but he's thankfully still with us, still thriving on carnivore.
Do you have a specific diet-wise stuff you like, keto or even carnivore?
Definitely carnivore. Well, I hope you've enjoyed watching. I do really appreciate it. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Feel free to share, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.